suppose we all have images of God in our minds, inner pictures shaped by our individual experiences, many of which are often rooted deep in childhood. Typically, some people see God as a sort of clockmaker, a bit like Steve Fletcher in the repair shop, who mends the broken clocks, winds them up, sets them away, polishes them up, presents them to the owner, and then waves goodbye to them as they go happy out of the door. So God sort of winds up creation and then disappears to some distant heavenly realm. Or is God a sort of get out of jail free card to be cashed in post-mortem? Or perhaps God is a bit like a fairy godmother called on to fix things in rough times. And such images will shape our experiences, but more importantly, they will shape what we see. Our reading today points to a very different picture. Jesus is the God inside human experience who comes to do something new, transforming the ordinary. Now perhaps you might want to object. Perhaps your instinct is to say, yeah, right, water into wine? Nice trick if you can pull it. But I've never seen anything like that. I don't see the connection between that old story and the world today. And that's a fair objection, and one I really want to take seriously. Right from the outset, in this first of 7 signs in John's Gospel, Jesus is in the midst of human ordinariness. He's at a wedding with his mum and some of his friends, his disciples. And there's a problem because the wine's run out. Nothing worse, especially at a wedding. Embarrassing, but it happens. Mary knows Jesus can solve the problem and encourages the servants to do what he tells them. And there seems to be a bit of a relational tension between Mary and Jesus. There is nothing too out of the ordinary. There are occasions in my life when I had such tensions with my mother, usually my own fault. Yet, notice how Jesus takes the ordinary to bring about an extraordinary transformation. The waiting staff at the wedding, the water, nothing more ordinary than that, and the jars. Now they may seem to be a little bit extraordinary choice, as each will hold probably around about 20 or 30 gallons. But most Jewish houses had those at the front door together with a servant whose job it was to wash the feet of those who were visiting. Now, given his power, Jesus could have just clicked his fingers and the wine would have materialized. But that's not what Jesus does. He transforms the ordinary, working with people, instructing the staff to fill the jars with the water. The steward draws out the liquid and finds it's fine wine. And there are gallons of the stuff. About 180 gallons to be precise. And on a Wednesday, when I visit Marks and Spencer's up on the Silver Link to do some shopping, I don't think there'll be that much hanging around up there even. In the first of John's signs, pointing to Jesus' glory, we see the ordinary transformed. And this is reinforced again and again in his ministry. The feeding of the 5,000 in John chapter 6 resonates with the Cana miracle, when Jesus uses the little lad's 5 barley loaves and 2 fish to feed a multitude. The transformation of the ordinary, he's at it again. Now back to the objection that the story in John doesn't seem to have much connection with our ordinary everyday life. No, I've never seen water turned into wine, although I do know a chemical experiment that might seem to replicate it in everything but the taste. But then, do I really need to experience this or poison myself to grasp the relevance of the sign? Can we see God's transformatory power at work in the ordinary today? If we can't see it, perhaps we're holding on to some unhelpful images of a God far away, a God who's disinterested and uninvolved. Perhaps we're looking for a God of party tricks to keep us entertained. And furthermore, each subsequent trick has to be bigger, better and more spectacular than the last one, just so as we don't get bored by the experience. And maybe we're not expecting to find God at work at all in the mundane, everyday experience of life. And if that is so, then we are missing something that is very, very important. There is something here about expectation leading to perception. Mary expected Jesus to do something extraordinary in the ordinary. After all, since the promise of his birth, this has been her experience. Her elderly cousin pregnant too. Shepherds, angels, visitors from far away. The prophecy of Simeon in the temple when Jesus was a baby. Anna's inspired teaching about him. Mary has been shaped as a seasoned spotter of the extraordinary, merging with the mundane. She expects it. She perceives it because it's part of her experience, part of her soul. We too often experience the ordinary transformed here and now. In the strange coincidences that happen to us, the phone call at just the right time, the unexpected encounter, encouragements coming from different sources at the same time. God is always working in the ordinary, and we can only see it if we open our eyes and look carefully. Perhaps it may be in the unexpected provisions, resources that were depleted, and then suddenly there's enough for all. Someone leans in at the right time. Help arrives unexpectedly, just at the moment of crisis. We see it in the odd lightness of heart that skips in the unlooked for. It might be like that shaft of light bursting in the gloom, hope coming unbidden, pushing back the darkness. It might be in the new beginning, just when life seems so consumed with grief, the surprise of discovering what seemed a cul-de-sac turns out to be a through road. It might be in the discovery that when we offer the little we have to God, be that in terms of time, effort, resource, willingness, God transforms this and makes of us so much more than we could ever ask or imagine. Not a thimbleful of blessing, but gallons of it. Our watery faith suddenly has a body, it suddenly has a depth, a more robust character, and a complex shape. the images we have of God, will influence our expectations and will influence what we see. If I think God is far away, disinterested, and perhaps like me, mostly grumpy, then I have no expectation of encountering God in the ordinary. But if I have schooled myself at Mary's feet, I will know that Jesus is the God in flesh. God with fingerprints, God in the midst of us, shoulder to shoulder, jowl by jowl, heart by heart. This is the God who transforms the ordinary each and every single day. Amen.